Greetings viewers, EricTheCarGuy here. Yes, behind me I have a 2004 Jeep Wrangler Sport. Yay! I know there's plenty of you out there that love Jeeps, and we're going to do some repairs on this Jeep today. In fact, we are here to replace the broken stabilizer link on the left front, but we're also going to inspect the suspension, take a look around, maybe lube some things up, and we're also going to take a trip to Advance Auto to get the parts today. So we have special thanks to Advance Auto for helping us out with this video today. I think I've talked too much. Why don't we start working on stuff? Okay, here is the actual problem. These things are supposed to be connected and they are not. So this is what we're here to fix. We're also going to take the opportunity to replace the bushings, which are up here, as you can see. Might as well. And we're actually going to replace both sides. The other side stabilizer link is not broken, but we're just going to take it as a target of opportunity and replace it anyway. Before we start in on that, why don't we look over the rest of the suspension to see if there's any other issues, and also give you some tips on how to inspect your suspension. One of the first things I check for when I've got wheels off the ground is I will check 3 and 9 o'clock and give it a little wiggle, and listen also. You'll feel a notchiness or something if there's a problem, and then 12 and 6, same thing. You just sort of want to feel for looseness and use the wheel. It gives you good leverage on the suspension. Let's do the same thing on the other side. 3 and 9, 12 and 6. This thing is actually pretty solid. Now let's get it up in the air and take a look at some of the other components. These are tie rods and part of the steering mechanism of this. There's a steering box here that as you turn the steering wheel moves everything around, moves this whole assembly, which in turn moves the front wheels. This is a steering dampener, by the way, for those of you that might have a question of why you'd have a shock absorber up here. It's for taking up those shock loads, like say you go over bumps and things, so you don't have your steering wheel bouncing around so much. Also going to take the opportunity to check over the front U-joints here. What I'm looking for, actually we have an example right here up above it on the bottom stabilizer link on this side. You see this orange dust here? That's usually an indication of a loose component. And if you see this orange dust around areas like particularly down here with the U-joint, that could indicate that that U-joint is starting to go bad. So you may not necessarily hear any clunking or movement, but if you see that red dust in this area, it's a pretty good indication that something is loose. And that works pretty much for all suspension components, including bushings and things. And we'll be replacing this anyway, so no big deal. Also, I'm going to take a look at the bushings down in here. As you can see, these are starting to dry rot a little bit. Not critical, but definitely something to keep an eye on. And we'll follow the control arm back to look at the other bushings here. Same thing. Here's some with the upper control arm in this area. Those actually look fine. I don't really see any cracking like I did on the lower one. And follow it up to the front. What I'm inspecting, everything that moves in the front suspension. Also going to take the opportunity to look at the brakes. See what kind of shape they're in. These look okay. This is just a splash shield back here that's rusty. The rotor's actually back in that area. U-joints once again, same deal. Look them over for any signs of that orange dust that we talked about. Nothing there. Look at the drive shafts. Also, while we're here, might as well look for oil leaks. Looks like we might have a small one there. Maybe the rear main seal. Maybe something farther up above. It could just be as simple as the oil pan gasket right there, but still, it doesn't look like a major leak. And then back up here by the transfer case, also checking for that orange dust, which I don't see anything, any leaks or abnormalities. Anytime you get a chance to get up under your vehicle, just look it over, see what you can see, but please support it. When you lift a vehicle, make sure you support it safely. Also looking at the exhaust, and we'll just take a quick look at the rear suspension, and what do we have here? Just like I talked about, that orange dust that you find when things start to go bad. I bet we'll be doing these stabilizer links not too long from now. And the other side has a little bit as well. More bushings. Once again, just a little bit of dry rot. I mean, this thing's just showing its age. It's actually, in my opinion, really good shape. Stuff with the parking brake, that's looking a little crusty. But it looks like it gets used, which is encouraging. More bushings back here. I think if we end up doing stabilizer links back here, we should also replace those bushings just for good measure. Back again to U-joints. This cute little drive shaft back here. I've got it in gear, so it's not moving. More bushings, a little bit of dry rot. So I say control arm bushings are in the future of this at some point also. And lastly, looking over the shocks, and I probably should have pointed these out in the front also. If shocks start to go bad, they usually leak out a little bit of oil. So if you see a little bit of oil residue on the outside of a shock, that's usually a sign that that damper is starting to go bad. Springs, look for any breaks. If a spring breaks though, you'll normally, the vehicle won't sit level. It'll sort of lean to one side, usually towards the side with the broken spring. And on all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive vehicles like this, I also like to look at these vents. This is a vent for the rear differential. There's one for the front differential also. So in off-road vehicles, you want to make sure that this is connected and that it's vented someplace far and above, because if this thing gets driven underwater and this seal is not intact, water can get into the differential. And I don't have to tell you that that would be bad. Here's another bushing here for this locator rod, the rear differential. Gonna check both ends of that. All looks pretty good. This rear shock. Exhaust also looks good. Well, let's get a look at those front shocks and pretty much call this inspection done. Here are those front shocks, and maybe, no, it's just shiny up there. Also, let's check that differential vent. This one goes way up, so we're good. No breaks, no anything down here. Brake hoses also, look for cracks. Move them around. You can see cracks sometimes when you move them around. I think we're good. Let's replace that stabilizer link, or links, plural, I should say. The question might come up, what do stabilizer links do, Eric? Well, I'll tell you. They help stabilize the load between one side of the vehicle and the other during cornering. And how it does this is we have this link that's connected to this stabilizer bar, which goes from one side of the suspension, up and over through there, down to the other side of the suspension. So this is the stabilizer bar. So as one side of the suspension goes up, the other side forces it back in the opposite direction because they're connected in this way. So all this stuff is spring steel. So really, what you'll notice if one of these breaks is possibly a rattle, but also as you go around turns, you might hear your tires squealing a bit more, and the front end may dive a little more on one side than it does on the other when you take a tight turn. Now that we've completed the inspection, let's head to Advance Auto and pick up the parts for this repair. Advance had arranged for us to pick up some Moog Problem Solver products for this project. It was super convenient. Well, I got everything I need here at Advance. Let's go back to the shop, put these on the Jeep. I should have mentioned earlier, it's a good idea to wear safety glasses, even when you're just doing the inspection, but certainly when you're doing work and handling impact tools, you want to be wearing safety glasses. Check out our parts. Went with Moog parts for this today. Looks like it comes in a few pieces. It's got this upper ball joint piece here, and we're gonna have to, some assembly required. Looks like we'll have to install a Zerk fitting and put these bushings in place. I hope there's a Zerk fitting. Yeah, there it is. This is a Zerk fitting or grease fitting or whatever you want to call it. And we're not just gonna do the links, we're also gonna do the bushings. And these here look like polyurethane bushings, which is awesome. To me, it looks like this is going to be the most difficult one to remove. Why not start with a little penetrating oil? Maybe up here too, as long as we're at it. Now I'm going to try with the 3/8, and if I'm not successful, I'm going to go for the 1/2 inch. I find that using impact tools to remove rusty fasteners works the best over trying to use like long breaker bars and things, but you got to use what you got. As I suspected, that's not going anywhere. Looks like I've got to hold this in place. My biggest Torx bit fits in there kind of loose. I just need to keep it from spinning, right? Now that we've broken it loose, let's see if the 3/8 will do the trick. Trying a different approach. It may be small, but it's my hope that it hopefully will do the trick. Well, let's try the other one. Just enough. Now we've got a method that we can use on the other side. Good thing we've got our vice grips out, because we'll need them for this. And that other fastener, I should have said, was an 18 on this side. This one that I'm about to remove on the top is a 15. It's like we didn't even need to hold that. Let's hope a few love taps gets it out. How do we solve this? First attempt, penetrating oil and vice grips. The vice grips are really letting me down today. It's like they don't even care about their job. Yep, laughing at me. Part of the problem is when I hit it, since this is under spring tension, it sort of loses the force that's being transmitted. I've got another plan, and it involves undoing the other side. We'll start with that. Ooh. Now that it's loose, I'm going to use a universal. Now, the whole thing can come down like this. Air hammer. Got it backed up against the bumper. Let's see what happens. Oh, I'm using my hammer attachment. Yes, it did shoot out and hit the wall. It did. Let's do it again. But this time I'm gonna hold on to it. I'm gonna put my earplugs in. What? What? Huh? Yeah, you really should, especially when you get up close to noises like this. Earplugs, just like eye protection. Good idea. A little less dramatic. Since we now have both links removed and we're also replacing these bushings, I'm going to remove this cover that goes over the top of these bushings and replace those now. Two 10mm fasteners on each side. Remove this cover. Now I'm going to lower it down so I can get better access to those bushings. Comes right off of there now. There's just two fasteners holding that hold down in place. We'll remove those and we'll have access to our bushings. I'm going to remove all four fasteners on both sides so that I can just replace both bushings at once. It's just going to be easy if I have to lift the bar up. These are 15mm. Can't quite get access to the back one, so I'm going to use a special wobble extension to try to get in there. I had a feeling it was going to turn out that way. Little penetrating oil. Probably should have started with that before. I'm going to break these loose with my breaker bar first. We'll try to, actually I'm going to take my rag and put it on the front here so I don't hurt the finish. It is a Jeep, but I want to try to keep her pretty. Hang on a minute, I have a solution. I was worried about the vibrations hitting that finish, but now if I use a shorter socket, it's no longer a concern. New bushings. Old bushing, new bushing. I know I use this stuff a lot, silicone paste, but I'm gonna put a little bit of that on the inside here. Silicone is not going to harden the rubber. It'll also help keep out moisture. It'll also help prevent noise. Not that I believe these will be noisy, but part of me says, Eric, why not just put a little bit of anti-seize on the threads of these bolts? And why is that little voice in my head saying that? Well, this Jeep's a little rusty. It's well taken care of, but a little rusty. And if somebody ever needs to come back and do this again, well, I just did them a favor. And it's quite possible I did myself a favor. So, you never know. Don't pass up an opportunity to do yourself a favor. I'm not going to tighten these down yet. I've got everything just threaded in, finger tight. I'm actually going to take advantage of the fact that I have all this movement and get the links hooked up before I tighten these down. They were kind enough to give us a new nut. We also have the poly bushings. I dare say that we're putting in stuff that's better than what we took out. I'm going to use silicone spray here instead of paste. I'm going to put a little bit in the inside of this. Got one side, two side, and a sleeve through the middle. End result. Give me a new washer and everything. I want to put our dust boot in. And also our Zerk fitting. These are always tricky because these threads are tapered. And it looked like on the previous ones they had these pointing down. I'm going to do the same here. Going to make another one. We're ready to install these on the vehicle. Do you remember which side went where? Let's use this to figure it out. It almost looks like they're the same. This was the right side. This was the left side. Because it's broken. Anti-seize on the through bolt. It's just the reverse of what we did when we took it apart. Oh, that's right. I did forget the washer. You're paying attention. Good job. I'll leave that loose. One of the reasons why I did both sides like this is so that I could get that together much easier. The thing about anti-seize is if you get it on you, you'll be finding it in all kinds of places weeks later. You know what? I just had a better idea. We'll do this one kind of opposite. We'll start it up here, and I'll put this part on, and then I'll come through here. Well, this part. Remember what I said about the anti-seize? It's everywhere. I was afraid of that. Sometimes this works. Sometimes I just smashed my hand. Please work. Fine. Glad that's over. They should go in easier than they come out. Put our cover on, we're done. As long as we're here, we're already dirty. We just installed these new parts. Set it with a little bit of grease. And actually grease any other fittings we can find. I'm going to show you one more little trick. If you're ever lubricating a chassis, take a little bit on the hose. You'll see like maybe a bolt or something that sticks out and comes into contact with something in this area. Those are steering stops. So when your steering wheel reaches the end of its travel, it hits that. So if you're turned all the way and you hear like a grinding noise when you go over a bump, it's because of that. So a little bit of grease helps quiet that issue down. There might be one on the back side too. Well, that wasn't too hateful. A lot easier with the lift, that's for sure. Just a few pitfalls and things to watch out for. I honestly think most of that was included in the video. I'm going to give a special thanks and shout out to Advance Auto for their help and the parts for this repair, so thank you for that. I'll put links in the description to any important things Advance might want to share with you. Also, if you have automotive questions, I would ask that you head over to EricTheCarGuy.com. There's a welcome video there to tell you about the stuff we have to help you. If you wish to connect with me, Eric the Car Guy, socially, I can be found on Google+, Facebook, Twitter, and also Instagram. Close each of my videos with be safe, have fun, and of course, stay dirty. I'll see you next time.